Good day, everyone. This is something that happened this past Friday while I was babysitting. For a little bit of context, I'm a 21-year-old female college student and have been babysitting since I was 14. I'm not an expert on literally anything. However, over the years, I have learned caution and resilience. At age 15, I took babysitting classes at our youth center, as well as a female self-defense course. So I babysit at least once a month for this one family. I like them because they pay me more than my usual hourly rate. They have a big house with internet that I can use to do homework, and the two kids are surprisingly well behaved and compliant. So the two parents have like a monthly ritual of going out around 5 p.m. and returning a little after 2 a.m. I'm always offered to sleep in the guest bedroom and stay until morning. I usually just stay awake and abuse their satellite TV and then leave when they come back. The house is in a nice neighborhood without a whole lot of neighbors. Very quiet. Also, their house is armed with an alarm system that I have the code to and can arm and disarm it through my phone. That'll be relevant in a little while. So I always take them for pizza at this place that has an arcade. I do this so that they tire themselves out and go to bed early. Plus, the little girl that I babysit is also on a mission to win a family of stuffed animals from the prize store, so I'd be the world's worst babysitter if I didn't guide her in that pursuit. If anyone's maybe wondering for whatever reason, after Friday night, she only needs the daddy stuffed animal before her collection is complete. Go girl. Anywho, I'm rambling. I was sitting at a table and watching them play in a ball pit while also texting on my phone. This couple came over and sat at the same table as me. It was a long table with parents scattered here and there, so this wasn't alarming. The couple looked normal enough. Both were probably in their mid-20s, possibly a little older. They talked to each other, but then the guy asked me, "Are you the one babysitting Dr. So-and-so's kids?" So the parents of these children are both doctors, and in the specific region that we live in, this would be common enough information. But I still chose to answer their question with an irrelevant statement. I wonder what they use to make the pizza here. Yeah, I know, I'm a master of deception. I deserve an Oscar for my performance. However, they seemed to see right through my clever ruse. They started making weird comments. They talked about the kids' parents. They commented on the daughter and how they wondered if, quote, she would look as pretty as their mom. Okay, my dudes. I don't know if that was intended to be creepy, but I'm just going to be safe and pretend that it was. And then the woman says to me, and I quote, "Do they really let you dress like that while watching their kids?" She motioned with her eyes towards my t-shirt, which was admittedly a little tight, though aside from a little bit of a bosom crack not revealing. I have a thin frame and a large chest. It's 90 degrees in my region of the US right now, so it's not like I can wear a hoodie, and my tits have a Crips and Bloods type relationship with any kind of shirt that has buttons. I saw that as my cue to go and get the kiddos and bring them to get their prizes so that we could bounce. After some very thought-provoking and philosophical debating, they both got their prizes and we headed back over to the house. So fast forward a few hours. Both kids were bathed and put to sleep. I delivered a heartwarming rendition of Goodnight Moon and read a very spooky chapter of The Werewolf of Fever Swamp and tucked them into dreamland. It was around 9 p.m. I was caught up on homework and was just watching TV when I heard some movement on the porch. I didn't think much of it at first, but the doorknob started rattling violently. I initially started moving towards the front door to see who it was. But miraculously, I remembered it was late at night, I was home alone with two kids, and I very much wanted to live. I turned around to grab my purse, which is where I keep my taser. As I'm moving, the back door starts rattling as well, and was accompanied by some banging noises. That's when I remembered that I hadn't enabled the alarm system after returning. Now, if this was a horror movie scenario, of course the alarm wouldn't have worked, and the intruders would have made their way inside. I hate to disappoint if you were expecting something more exciting, but I enabled it again quite easily with no incident. I ran upstairs and grabbed the two kids. I put them in their parents' room in the walk-in closet. I still hate that I scared them. When I gathered them up, I gave no context as to what was going on. I didn't want to tell them that someone was trying to break into the house, but in the process, the fear of not knowing seemed to be worse. I instructed them to stay in there and stay quiet, and only to open the door if they hear me talking to them. I then locked the bedroom door, which is the only door on the upstairs floor that locks. I sat there with my taser out and hit the panic button on the phone app. Several minutes went by, then I got the notification through the app that the alarm system was disabled. I planned on calling 911, even though the panic button already took care of that, but I found it more beneficial to arm it back. Then it disarmed again, so I armed it again. Then it disarmed once again, so I armed it once again. By this time, I could hear what sounded like 2 sets of footsteps walking up the stairs. Good job, girl, you locked yourself inside with 2 potential assailants. I was holding it together for the sake of the kids, but not too deep inside, I was scared to death. When I heard the footsteps get near the door, and saw the knob twisting, I took a deep breath and pulled the trigger on my taser, just to let them know that I was armed, though it realistically wouldn't do much good. I informed them through the door that the alarm was triggered and police were on their way. Thankfully, I was greeted by a familiar voice. "Hey, it's Doctor, his real name. You're safe." I opened the door and ran into their arms and started sobbing. I hadn't realized truly until it was over just how scared I really was. The kids came out, without me giving them the okay, but their parents were there, so I'll let it slide. When I enabled the alarm on my phone, they both got the notification from the place they were at. With the app, you have the option to view the porch cameras as well. When they got the notification that the panic button was activated, they saw through the camera that there were people on each side of the house, 1 man, 1 woman. When the alarm kept disarming, that was them trying to get into the house. A police report was filed by them, and I gave a statement mentioning the 2 weirdos I met earlier that day, even though there was really no evidence that would directly point to them. Camera footage didn't give any positive face IDs either. So yeah, I was scared. I'm getting over it now. I'm just grateful that the couple that I was babysitting for were close enough to make it to me. I hate to say it, but I find the police response time to be terrible. I'm currently back in my own apartment an hour away. I checked in once to see how the kids were doing, and they're holding up fine. I'm just glad they had proper protection in their home, and that this didn't end up to be any worse. I still think about this encounter as an adult. When I was about 10, I'm 25 now, I was downstairs watching TV late at night with my mom and sisters. Everyone decided to head off to bed and I was left alone downstairs. I started drifting off and all of a sudden someone started banging on our door. Hard. I'm talking like let me the hell in hard. I was so scared I just sat there frozen, staring at the door like my life depended on it. My dog was laying right next to me and also just stared. He never barked or moved an inch, which was odd because he always barked at the door. The banging never stopped for what seemed like a solid 5 minutes, but in reality was probably only a minute. I looked at my dog, and I think because I finally moved, my dog snapped out of his trance, looked at me for a split second, and jumped up and ran towards the door. He still didn't bark, but instead started turning his head like he was confused. I finally got the courage to get up and open the blinds to see what was going on. And this young woman, maybe around 20 to 25, was standing there holding her left breast in her hand. It was still attached to her, but she had pretty large breasts and she was holding it, trying to keep them up from sagging, I'm guessing. She had blonde hair, white skin, and was covered in blood. Her shirt was ripped and her hair was a mess. I remember thinking she may have gotten beat up or was in a car crash. Either way, I immediately went to go open the door. As soon as I went to unlock it, my mom out of nowhere slammed her hand on the door and relocked it. I had no idea she had even come down the stairs, let alone walked up behind me. I was so focused on the door and on this woman that when she slammed her hand, it was almost as if it knocked me back into reality. The reality of not opening the door for strangers in the middle of the night. I looked up at her and I could feel my eyes were wide, and I think I even started crying. She put her hand on my shoulder and moved me away from the door. She yelled, "Who is it?" through the door, and the girl yelled back that her boyfriend had beat her up and they lived in the apartments across the street from us. Mind you, we lived in townhouses in a cul-de-sac. Our unit was all the way in the back where you would start the turn. We were the first unit in the row, but where she pointed out her and her boyfriend's place was at was quite a ways away from us. You'll see how I know that in a minute. My mom asked her for her name and she said something that sounded like something Annie. Maybe Bethany or Stephanie or something like that. I saw my mom hesitate to open the door, but after she yelled, "Please help me," my mom opened the door, stepped out and pulled it close to shut, but not completely shut. I cracked the door behind her to make sure she was okay and also see what was going on. The woman we'll call Bethany kept thanking my mom and asking to come in because she was scared her boyfriend was going to come after her. My mom refused and explained that she couldn't let her in because of the safety of her 4 kids, but said she would sit out there with her. My mom yelled at me to grab the phone and call the police, so I did. My mom started asking her what happened and what specific unit she lived in. She pointed towards her specific one and told my mom the building number and her unit. This silver SUV pulled up a little later and she ran towards it yelling, "That's my sister," and then just jumped in. The car sped off without another word from her or a single word from the sister. My mom looked back at me confused and came back inside and shut and locked the door. We just stood there and looked at each other. I asked my mom what about the police, and she said she would wait for them downstairs if I wanted to go to bed. I was too scared to leave her, so I waited with her. Once they arrived, my mom explained what happened and the officer said she did the right thing not letting her inside. Weird thing is, my dog never barked once until the cops knocked on the door. They also explained that they've been receiving similar calls like that in the area recently. Even worse, the next morning we all packed up to go to the grocery store, and as we passed that building, you could tell the apartment was empty. Like no one had been living in it. Maybe they just didn't have any furniture or anything, but it was still weird. He never came after her that night, and we never saw her or the SUV again. Bethany or Stephanie or whatever, I hope you're okay if this was real, but also if it's not, don't ever knock on my door again. Update: I did ask my mom to elaborate on everything. So after my mom yelled for me to call the police, I walked away to grab the landline in the kitchen. When I walked away, my mom said this to her: "Now you listen to me. If you are trying to get one over on me and hurt my family, I will do worse than what you're expecting. Nothing means more to me than my children, not my life and not my freedom. I will help you if you need it, but you cannot enter my home. So don't ask again or I'm going inside and I will lock you out and not help you. Do you understand? I asked her what the girl said or did after that, and she said she just looked at her kind of nervous and said she understood and appreciated us helping her. That's about the time I returned to the door after calling the police and heard my mom asking her what happened and where she lived. Needless to say, but my mom was a boss in that moment. I'm a 17-year-old girl working as a cashier at a popular thrift store. I've been there for approximately 8 months and love my job and my coworkers. A common thing I've noticed is that, unfortunately, anytime a new younger female cashier starts working, we've had quite a few since people quit or fall through. She'll be hit on by plenty of older guys, and I was no exception to that. I've never had to deal with creepy or weird customers until this job, and I worked in the food industry before, so maybe that's why. We of course get a handful of regulars, and while I've had a few creepy older guys hit on me before, one even looking me up on Facebook from my name tag and messaging me, there's a regular that comes in all the time. I want to say he's in his late 40s, and while he's always nice, my manager has pointed out his obsession with me. I was called in the office the other day so she could show me how he acts and such with these surveillance cameras. Just a list of what's been pointed out to me that I didn't really notice before. He comes in at roughly the same time I'm working every day, and apparently doesn't show up on my days off. I work closing most of the time, so he comes in around 6 p.m. When he comes in, he will immediately look at the register I almost always work at, and will do a double take looking for me. He usually buys one BS item, spending about 15 minutes in the store usually. My manager has pointed out that he needs to buy something or else he knows it'll look weird. Every time without fail, he will go to my register, and even when I was on the floor doing recovery, he asked me to check him out because I'm his favorite cashier. If there's a shorter line, it doesn't matter. He will stay at my register waiting and watching me. He lingers around after buying something just to talk to me, showing me things on his phone, making sure there's no one else in line. My manager said he approaches me when I'm alone so he can talk to me without holding up a line. He's commented on my hickeys that I failed to cover up before on my neck, making weird remarks here and there. He says he usually checks because there's always about 1 or 2. He said I would look good as a blonde, which isn't inherently weird, but paired with everything else, I guess it sort of is. When I wasn't wearing makeup, he would say something like, "You seem out of sorts recently." I've started wearing makeup again recently, and he's commented saying he likes that I'm back to my old self. I've noticed weird flirty remarks with him but always brushed it off, because customers are always kinda weird and I deal with that often anyway. He'll lean over the register counter to talk to me closer, just his body language in general. He does a double take when he leaves too, keeping his eyes on me. These are just things that have been pointed out to me by my manager. She's like a protective mother with me and says every time he comes in, she watches the cameras just to keep an eye on him. I watched the surveillance with her, and after all of that piled up, I'm starting to be more wary. For now, all we can do is just sit and watch. We have no reason to kick him out of the store or anything, and my general manager, being the dip that he is, wouldn't care anyway. It's just another customer to him. He wouldn't let me change my name tag after I told him about a customer looking me up on Facebook, saying it's policy and in general making me feel like an idiot, like I'm overreacting. I'm opening tomorrow morning, so I doubt I'll see him. He probably came in today, but I requested today off, so he's probably confused with my schedule right now. I don't know. The donation guys and I are pretty close, at least with 3 of them. I'm told to call them up front if he starts being weird, kinda using a code phrase that's inconspicuous enough that the guy doesn't realize.